We ready, Amy? Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 25 of Gaston's Great. Yeah, if you're surprised as I am that we made it to our 25th episode. Gaston's Great is a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we're coming to you from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services and looking forward to having some great discussions, I think, in the coming weeks and months. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another terrific organization this week and have Bart Landess and Ashton with us from the Carolina Thread Trail. Bart is the executive director and Ashton is the community coordinator. Bart and Ashton, it's great to have you on and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And this is actually really special. We've been lucky to have a lot of great organization, but this is one of the more regional, I guess is the best way to put it. Is that a fair assessment? That Carolina Thread Trail is really a regional organization and covers
15 counties.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's definitely a large, maybe the Catawba Riverkeeper was maybe the only thing that can rival that we've had on. So we're going to get right to it, gentlemen. So maybe, Bart, start with you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and anything you'd like to share.
I'll give you a quick rundown because it relates to the next question about what the heck am I doing here. But, I first came here to go to Davidson College and moved down to do that from Virginia, but then went back to Virginia, had 2 years in D.C., then went to law school, then came back to practice law, but went from there to a nonprofit career. So I was at Davidson College, and then I was at Foundation for the Carolinas, and then I was at the YMCA, and then I came to Catawba Landess Conservancy and Carolina Thread Trail.
Okay.
So been in the region 37 years now.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Ashton, how about you, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm originally from Northwest Arkansas. Grew up there, went to school in Colorado at Colorado State University and studied natural resources there, and took a year off being a ski instructor, park ranger, and came back and got my master's, and then moved to Charleston, South Carolina, pursuing a nonprofit work protecting private land, farms, forests, and now I had the great opportunity to come up here to Charlotte, live in Mount Holly, and work for the Carolina Thread Trail. Been working for 6 months with the Thread Trail and really enjoying living in Gaston County. Okay.
Well, listen, I appreciate that. I think the Colorado State, they're the Rams, aren't they?
That's right.
All right. Yeah, I grew up a Los Angeles Rams fan of all things. That's why I always recognize those helmets from Colorado State. I'm a big college football fan, even though my Wolfpack, historically is not very good. So, but we won't talk.
This is your year.
Maybe.
There you go.
Maybe. But us Wolfpackers have learned, don't count those chickens too soon. So listen, I appreciate that, and because you kind of answered the second question, but something I don't know that had it in the question, but can you kind of share maybe, Bart, if you can, about maybe the history of the Thread Trail and give us just a little quick background?
Yeah, sure thing. Thread Trail is 13 years old, and it was launched as an effort by the Catawba Landess Conservancy to make sure that there's plenty of opportunity for people to get out into nature. Our tagline is saving land and connecting lives to nature. And so the original idea was for 500 miles of connected trails. And that idea went out into that 15-county region, and the county and municipal authorities were told, you get to decide where you want trails. And they thought about it, worked on it, and by the end of about 3 years from then, there was 1,600 miles of planned trails.
That's quite a difference.
It's quite a difference. And now we have 330 or so on the ground and another 70 to 100 that is blueway, meaning waterways, including a good hunk of that here in Gaston County.
Okay, very good. I don't think I knew. I mean, I'd heard that before, but I don't think I knew the specific history and how long it had been around. So what can you tell me? Is there a specific mission? You may have just said it, but is there a specific mission that the Thread Trail has? Or
its mission is to have or create the opportunity for people to be in the outdoors in a way that's really enjoyable. A lot of folks aren't terribly comfortable being in the wild. It's actually it's an unhappy thing for me that frequently when we take people on hikes, they say, I am so glad you went out here with me. I'm scared to death to be out here by myself. And so that is something that's very disheartening to me.
Right.
And the trails are a way where people know where they're going. They know it's okay. They know other people have been out that way. And actually, lots of times, folks will go together. So it's a way to make it accessible for folks. And for us, it's a way to help people understand how important our work to preserve the green space is.
Okay. Yeah, very good. So, yeah, I guess I'm fortunate to be actually grew up doing, I guess at the time it was still called Indian Guides. I think it was Y Guides now, but with my dad. So we did a lot of camping and hiking, and, of course, being so close to the North Carolina mountains. And, frankly, having Crowder's Mountain right here in Gaston County, we're kind of spoiled doing some really close hiking. So, I've been exposed to that. But it's a good point that that's not the case for everybody.
That's right.
So maybe kind of this next question, I don't know, we call this next question kind of, can you talk about initiatives? Maybe you, Ashton, can maybe talk about some of the initiatives or programs, or I'm not sure the best way to word that for the Carolina Thread Trail, but some of the things that you guys have going on, and how do you get more people involved and that kind of thing maybe.
You talk about Gaston specifically, and then,
okay.
then I'll go big, if that's all right.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Gaston County, we're really fortunate that there's just a ton of things going on with the Carolina Thread Trail. The communities here are on fire for outdoor recreation and are in many ways rebranding themselves around that. So a lot of our programming and opportunities to educate people about the Carolina Thread Trail and really what goes into furthering the development of our regional network happens in Gaston County. We have kayak programs, hikes, bikes, and work days, volunteer work days, people to come out and remove invasive species on the Catawba Land Conservancy properties, which was a great way to engage folks there. And specifically, when I'm talking about the communities really buying in and going full throttle to get outdoor recreational opportunities on the ground, such as the Carolina Thread Trail. A lot of that's happening along the South Fork Corridor,
right,
as we call it, and the Gaston Gateway Corridor, extending over into Charlotte, and people coming over into Gaston County to enjoy all the great things that are here. If you remember,
just to clarify, especially since you live in Gaston County now, and I'll remind Bart that, according to Saturday Night Live, Charlotte is the gateway to Gastonia, right? I think I was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like isn't there a relatively new section in Cramerton that was just recently done? Because we were just on it 2 weekends ago. Our company had a team put together to do the walk to end Alzheimer's, and we actually, that was our section that we walked, was part of the Carolina Thread Trail over there near Goat Island, and that extended out now, because last time I was over there, it wasn't there, so I know it's relatively new. So that's and I noticed on the website, I was stunned at how much, frankly, mileage is in Gaston County compared to the overall trails and sections.
And Bart, one of the main reasons that's the case is that Gaston County was one of the first counties in the region to really embrace the regional master plan.
It still is. I can't remember the number. If I'm not mistaken, after 5 years from now, Gaston's going to have 53 miles done. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think 53 is the number.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And it's because Gaston, as Ashton said, Gaston's been on fire for this, and they've been on fire all along, and they're really working hard at it. And again, every municipality gets to do their own thing.
Okay.
Our job is to make sure they all connect. But every municipality makes their own decisions and does their own trails, and Ashton's job is to help them out with technical expertise and making sure that everybody's talking to each other, all that kind of stuff. But they're doing it, and they're doing it for themselves, and it's really very exciting, and they're getting a lot done. Let me go broad for just a second. Over that same 5-year period where Gaston's going to end up with 53 miles, the greater region is going to get 200 new miles. So we'll have 600 miles done after 5 more years. And, again, eventually 1,600, but that's going to take a while.
All right. So, any clue? How long would it take? Is there a plan? Or is that just a bad question? 1,600 miles. That seems, when you talk about 53 in Gaston County and then going to 1,600, that just seems like, for somebody like me, that just seems like a daunting task.
It is. Remember, there's 15 counties. County by county, it's not a huge number, but it's a big number. And some people who are close to us have said it's a generational thing, and I don't like that because it means that I won't get to benefit from it completely.
Right, yeah.
What I tend to say is it's going to be a few decades. But let me give you an example of the easy stuff and the hard stuff. Easy stuff is some of these trails were pre-existing.
Okay.
There are trails that were in place, and the reason they were in place is they connected important things. One of the examples here in Gaston County, over on the South Fork River, the South Fork Trail was the old path to get from the small towns to the mills.
Okay.
So it was already there. We just sort of gusted up a little bit. But there are other spots, and I'll go to Mecklenburg for this one, even though I know it's bad form. But
no, we're good.
Mecklenburg's going really hard at it, and they're doing all their trails paved on purpose. They want them multi-use. They want people disabled and strollers and all that kind of stuff to be able to use them. But that's expensive and hard.
Sure.
And so there's a piece called the Brandywine Gap. It's 1.5 miles long, and it's in a very heavily developed part of the town. And as a result, it's being very heavily engineered, and it's $25 million for 1.5 miles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's kind of top of the list in terms of how hard it can be. And then at the other end is these trails that are already existing, and they just say, yeah, that's part of the network.
Okay. Yeah, that clears up a lot because I've enjoyed the Carolina Thread Trails, but frankly, I kind of haven't stopped long enough to think about, well, how did this get here? And what's required to do that? Which maybe that might be part of the mission, right? Is to have people enjoy it, maybe without having to think too much about that. This might be a tough question that we include each episode, but what kind of stories can you share, or how would you, maybe some anecdotal stories or something about how something was helped, the community was helped, or just what you've seen, through the Thread Trail?
I'm gonna let you talk about connecting a couple towns.
Okay.
But I want to tell you about a guy. One of our folks was out on the trails doing some maintenance work and met this fellow who was elderly. He's probably 78, something like that. And they just started chatting. My colleague said, well, tell me, why do you like this? And he said, it's kept me alive. And so, of course, the question was, how, why? And he said, well, my brother died last year, and this is my therapy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He would go out and he would walk. And by doing that, first of all, just the motion and the good air and healthy exercise and all that was good for him. But he also made a bunch of new friends. And so that network and that opportunity was a big, big thing for him. So that was a guy, but boy, it was a big one.
Yeah, I'm sure there's, with that many miles, I'm sure there's other examples of that that you never hear about.
Yeah.
Very good. Ashton, what can you share about that?
Within Gaston County, especially being a new resident and thinking about implementation of trail on the ground, we're some of the main destinations are going to be a part of Gaston County. You're going to be connecting communities from Spencer Mountain all the way down to the Daniel Stowe Botanical Garden. From Ranlow, Belmont, Cramberton, and then all the way over to Mount Holly and across into Mecklenburg County, which is wonderful. But as a new person to the area and getting to know the region, and especially walking out on as many trails as I can in Gaston County, it's a lot of fun just to observe. And as I'm walking down the trail with my wife, and it brings a lot of joy to see families together with their kids in a stroller, couples, and to Bart's point, it brings a lot of relief, especially in times like this with a lot of things going on that just people like COVID just
the last 20 months
to relax.
The last 20 months have been. We kind of made a decision early on. We try to avoid that word because it seems like it seems like in no matter whether it's at work or personal or in the community, every discussion somehow ends up going that direction. But being an outside activity has been something that early on people were able to at least get back out and do a little bit, right? And so that's a big one. And as I've traveled around the county the last few years, I'm involved with a group called F3, and we have a lot of areas around the county where we have workouts, and so many of them there'd be a sign. Oh, I didn't know this was part of the Carolina Thread Trail. That's a great example to your point about how it's so connected. So this is for both of you. Maybe start with, I know you haven't, Ashton, been with the organization a real long time, but maybe can you share maybe what you are most proud of accomplishing since you've been at, or what you've seen the organization accomplish since you've been with the Carolina Thread Trail?
I think the biggest thing that has struck me is our partners, the people that we work with. I can't speak highly enough about the people in the municipalities here in Gaston County that are making this trail happen. I mean, everybody has made me feel so welcome. They're very, very intelligent and knowledgeable about their community, the plan for the community, and are really passionate about making their own unique identity a destination in itself, and want to better their community for their residents. So our partners are great. That's the biggest thing that's struck me, and developed friendships pretty quickly. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, things like this just don't happen, right? They have just collaboration involved. There's got to be leadership involved, and you would think it would be easy, but it's not. It's not always the case. Everybody's not always on the same page, it seems like. But Bart, what about you, since you've been involved with the organization?
I have 4 children.
Okay.
I should have told you that back when you asked about my background. So a lot of my focus just in life is, how are kids treated, what happens, how do they get along, all that kind of stuff. And one of I've lived mostly in Charlotte, and I grew up in a small town, and I could go outside and play. And my parents frequently told me that. Go outside and play.
Please, and stay as long as you need to.
And I couldn't say that to my kids, because I got angry about that and was crabbing about that to my spouse, who would say to me, "You do not want your children playing outside next to Fairview Road. What is wrong with you?" But one of the things that the Thread Trail does for families is you can go outside and play.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of that. It is having had it and then not had it, it is a big, big thing to be able to provide it to other people. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, I'm a big podcast listener, to try to make up for the unprofessionalism of this podcast that I'm involved with. But one of my favorite podcasts I listen to is it's called The Art of Manliness. And just today I listened to a podcast, and the title of it was Let Children Play. And it was talking about the gap from when I was a child to the way it kind of seems now. It does feel like maybe there's a little bit of, I don't know what's the word, resurgence, or kind of circling back to, maybe people realizing how important that is. So that's a terrific point. And yeah, I mean, I would leave, and I don't know, in the summer, especially before I was old enough to work, I would leave on my bicycle almost at first light, and my parents might not see me until, it was dark.
Yeah, the rule is be home for dinner.
Yes.
Otherwise, and also growing up in a small town, it didn't matter where I was. If I did something wrong, they heard about it before I got home.
Yeah, I can assure you, I remember as I got older, my father especially knew much more than I realized. Sometimes he shared it when I was younger, and sometimes he did not. But when I was older, he did share something. You think you got away with that back when you were in 11th grade? Well, I knew about that.
I think one important thing to highlight is the Carolina Thread Trail. It includes a lot of different types of trail.
Right.
Wide paved greenways. A lot of times that's the first thing people think of. But we have natural surface trail, really narrow, what you think of more primitive single track trail, wide natural surface trail, and each of these segments are essentially a linear park. And when municipalities and the Thread Trail work together to create these greenways that are all these different services, you're creating a linear park. You're preserving open space, and you're creating an opportunity for people not only to enjoy the trail, but to pick up a stick from the woods, to throw a rock in the creek, and that's part of that natural play that I think is really important.
Yeah, obviously we'll make sure we talk about the website before we're finished and how people can really find out. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm going to doing a little bit of research for today, looking at the website. Yeah, I had, it's a great website first of all, but then the drop down just to look at the different types of trails. Yeah, I enjoy the trails. I don't think on that level about the mountain bike and the paved trails. And so yeah, that was something that I just again, I'm a guy that just goes and enjoys it. I don't want to think about how the stuff gets there, right? That's hard work. So again, I appreciate you guys sharing that. This is a question. I'm going to change this up a little bit. A question we ask about why is Gaston County better? Well, I'll leave it at that. This is a podcast about why is Gaston County such a great place. So why, and maybe in your own words, maybe start with you, Bart. Why is Gaston County in the region in general better? Because the Carolina Thread Trail is here. You may have already kind of shared some reasons, but
well, I'll tell you, my favorite is picking up on something Ashton talked about is the connection piece and the collaboration that you were talking about. All these little towns that used to not have much to do with one another,
right,
now are very closely connected. And let me give you two examples: one local, and then another one further afield. Again, these towns grew up separately, and frequently the other than some main road, there was literally no connection. And Ashton and I were walking on one of the new trails that isn't even open yet, and it was connecting Cramerton and Belmont. And it was doing so in a spot where they had never, ever been connected before. And it was interesting because I made a wrong turn trying to get over to see that, and it took me 1.5 miles to get back, and it was about a 1/4 mile on the trail. And it's because the roads didn't connect. And so connecting communities, connecting people, and having the leaders of those communities want to be connected and working very collaborative and all that kind of stuff, we don't see that in a lot of other places. That's really, it's not Gaston specific, but Gaston's doing it better than everybody else. And let me tell you one that's really known well to me, because I went to Davidson College, I worked at Davidson College, I lived in the town of Davidson. Davidson and Cornelius, you may know, are very different towns.
Sure. Yep.
And one was the college town, one was the textile town, and they didn't talk. And there literally was no road between them other than the highway. That was it. And that was true when I was in college there, actually. And then 2 years ago, a trail opened that connected the two towns.
Oh, wow.
So after 150 years, but that connection, Cramerton to Belmont, Davidson to Cornelius, that's what's really, I think, far more remarkable than just the fact that you can go walk on a trail.
Okay, very good. Ashton, would you, anything to add to that, or is that, did you pretty much get it?
I would just highlight, maybe it is just kind of a little bit of a bias, because since I live in Gaston County. But
it's okay to be biased about Gaston County.
Yep.
We're in favor of that.
I think Gaston County, has a little bit of everything from an outdoor perspective. Yeah. You have really nice river opportunities, lakes, mountains, great forests. So what makes Gaston County so great to me is that those natural opportunities are already there. What the municipalities, the county, even the state has already done with the state park like Carter's Mountain is you're capitalizing on what you already have.
Right. Yep.
And the Carolina Thread Trail is doing, we keep talking about connection, but that's what's so important. You're connecting these natural destinations, and that's going to attract a lot of people. We just want to highlight and allow people to get to those places that are already here and enjoy it,
Right.
And that takes a lot of collaboration and a lot of hard work, but a lot of that's already happening and is done, and there's still a lot to be done, but Gaston County is a natural destination. Yeah,
trails, parks, recreation, those are the things that can more naturally, I think, connect towns. Gaston County has a lot of a lot of municipalities, and so anything that can bring that group together for the better of everybody is something positive. Bart, you kind of touched on this already, but I'm going to ask again. How do you envision the organization looking 5 to 10 years, down the road?
I told you about our 5-year plan, and that plan is based upon all these municipalities doing all this stuff, and that's 200 more miles. what I would say more broadly is that at the beginning, it was all the process of figuring out this concept of how all these trails were going to connect. And so for several years, there was a lot of talk, but there wasn't any action yet because we didn't have the plan in place. By the time we had the plan in place, the Great Recession happened, and that killed all the budgets of all these municipalities. Now we're really starting to have momentum. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 years we're going to do 200 miles, that in the 5 years after that we do 300. It wouldn't surprise me a bit because the momentum is building and the plans are becoming clearer and clearer and clearer as we get some built. There are some places where you can actually see where the trail should go next. You know, you're in between two things, and people just start walking it. And so they're kind of making a trail all by themselves. And so I think that momentum is what's really going to be a big factor in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Ashton, anything you want to add to that, or that might have covered it pretty well?
I think Bart pretty well covered that one.
Very good. So kind of before we move on to these even more important questions, is there anything I should have asked that I haven't yet, or anything specific you'd like to share about the Carolina Thread Trail? Of course, we'll be sure to finish up with some more info on the Thread Trail. But
I have one little bit of braggadocio.
Okay.
When we finish, any minute now, we'll be the second largest trail network in the United States.
Oh, wow!
So it will be something that this area is known for. It'll be a big deal.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I would have again no concept of that, but I wouldn't have thought the Piedmont of North Carolina would be able to claim that. Anything else about Gaston County or anything that we need to, before we kind of come back to, before I chastise you about never being at Tony's Ice Cream?
I'll tell you, you got the best volunteers too.
Okay, well that's good to hear.
You really do. It's part of what's making Ashton's work go so well is that we have these fantastic volunteers all dotted around the county. It's really superb.
Well, we had a few weeks ago. We had it's a different name now. We had Gaston County Travel and Tourism on, Michael Applegate and Emily Carpenter, and they were talking about, the mountain bike and trails out at Poston Park, which I know isn't specifically part of this, but it's kind of another unique thing about Gaston County. But, even though that's a county-owned park, all those trails were basically done by volunteers. And so that's just that's a good example of that. So, obviously we're going to come back and make sure we finish up with a couple more questions about the Carolina Thread Trail. But since this is a podcast about Gaston County, why Gaston County is such a great place, we have a couple of questions that we want to run through, and we will allow just for this episode, we will allow some more regional answers, Bart, to some of these questions. But the first question, and we're going to call it. Do you really live in the Piedmont region area of Gaston, near Gaston County? Speed round of questions. We change the name every episode, so depends on who's here. So I'm going to start with Ashton because I already know the answer to this question. What is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor, Ashton?
Well, I have to be honest. I have not been to Tony's Ice Cream yet.
So that's good. Very good timing, Amy. Very good timing.
And it kills me because I love ice cream.
Yeah.
How in the heck have I not been to Tony's Ice Cream yet? I'm wondering that for myself now.
Well,
I've been missing something.
Just a record, it's between here and Mount Holly. So you will be, depends on how you go back to Mount Holly, you might drive right past it. So just for the record. So Tony Coletta, if you're listening, we have somebody that we need to get over to Tony's. Tony's, the Coletta family owns the Tony's Ice Cream. What? Oh, yeah. So that's some advertising, all this advertising we're doing. All right, Bart, how about you? Maybe if you've never been to Tony's, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? I'll let you off the hook.
Well, I haven't been to Tony's, but because it was you alerted me to it, I immediately went and looked up all the flavors. I'm going mint chocolate chip.
All right, mint chocolate chip. That has more than one person has said that. Now, this is, this next question is this is more of a regional thing as well, but I don't know if you've ever had either one of these, but Sundrop or Cheerwine, Bart?
I have never had either one.
Okay, well then, anything close, similar? This is stuff that especially all the team and staff with Carolina Thread Trail really want. They really want to know all this. This is super important.
You know what? I'm going to get you into a different area of battle, which is vinegar, mustard, or ketchup barbecue. And
Interesting.
I'm a vinegar person.
All right, so more Eastern style. Actually, the first few episodes, that was one of our questions, and we had
Had fights?
we had the local Heart Society on. Renee Anthony is executive director, and she kind of chastised me for having questions about barbecue and ice cream. Those were not cardiologist approved questions, but I'm actually more of a Western style, barbecue person. But have you had Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Sundrop.
Oh, bless you. All right, I'm gonna start with you, Ashton.
I'm getting the answers wrong.
No, Sundrop's great. Absolutely, no. Yeah, we're all about Sundrop. Favorite local restaurant, Ashton, here in Gaston County, or Mount Holly, or
I want to go with Doffers.
Doffers is great in Cramerton.
Yep.
Yeah, that's terrific. All right, have you ever eaten in Gaston County?
I have eaten in Gaston County, and my answer is Spruce Goose.
Oh, Spruce Goose, yeah, one of the Holy Angels
Exactly.
restaurants. Yeah.
Great food, great cause.
Absolutely, and they have their partner restaurant, Cherub's Cafe, in Belmont too. So I appreciate that. So this is I'm going to assume this is a predetermined answer to this question. Favorite outdoor activity in Gaston County?
I'm a big mountain biker.
So okay, good.
Yep. And, Gaston County has a lot of mountain bike trails.
Yeah, we
Postal
sure
Park,
do.
Rocky Branch Park.
Yeah.
Personally, since I live in Mount Holly, I'm going to go with Mountain Island Park as my destination mountain bike place. So
Okay, very good.
It's really nice if you hadn't checked it out.
I don't think I have, actually. That's embarrassing to say. So there's my Tony's Ice Cream answer. I don't think I've ever been there, even though I have a cousin that lives on Mountain Island Lake.
I'm going to be a much more simpleton kind of answer. I get on these trails for work, which is like I come home and tell my wife, had to hike today.
That's tough.
Yeah, tough duty.
Life.
Tough duty. But most recently, Avon Creek, the brand spanking new trail that Gastonia just opened,
Yep.
Which is great.
Very good. I appreciate that. So being it's funny, most of the previous guests on the podcast know me well enough to know that, I'm an NC State guy. So the big joke is, always this next question I have on here, because as an NC State guy, you get sick of hearing about Duke and UNC. So I'm always hoping and praying that maybe an NC State guy on there. But I'll modify the question a little bit today, since I heard what you said earlier. But the question is typically UNC, Duke, or NC State. And of course, I'll start with you, Ashton. You can also add Colorado State if you want to. I mean, if you really have to go with your heart.
So in North Carolina, I'm going to go with NC State.
That's what I'm talking about.
I actually, being from Northwest Arkansas, I love the Colorado State Rams, but I grew up an Arkansas Razorback fan. So you know what? In basketball, UNC and Duke have been some of our historical rivals there. So I'm going NC State.
There's a local gift buddy of mine who runs, he's the president of an organization here called Promise for Haiti. And he's a cardiologist here, but his name's Omer Shed, and he's from Arkansas. And he said the exact same thing. I'm going to say NC State just because we don't want to say – actually, that's not what he said. I think he said anybody but UNC and Duke because of Arkansas basketball.
There you go.
That was exact answer. So, Bart, what about you? We'll accept Davidson unless you feel in your heart to say something else.
I can give you a better answer. One of my kids went to actually twice been to UNC. Undergrad and grad, so I'll go with UNC.
Okay, very good. I have my wife is a UNC Chapel Hill graduate, so we have a mixed marriage, and we have kids at Western Carolina and Appalachian State at the moment. So we're all over the place as a family. Catamounts, Wolfpack, Mountaineers, Tar Heels on occasion. So Ashton, I'll start with you. What is something very few people know about you? This is a family-friendly podcast, by the way.
The thing that when I was thinking about this question came to mind as we're preparing. So my first concert I went to was when I was 7. I went to a Rolling Stones concert.
At age 7?
7, yeah.
Wow.
My dad's a huge Rolling Stones fan, and they're like, hey, you know what? There's never too young to go check out the Rolling Stones.
Your parents, that's some strong parenting right there.
That's some strong parenting.
Wow.
My dad's going to Dallas. He was just in Nashville with my brother to see the Stones and going to Dallas to go see them again before they
So we've said this this has come up a couple times on some of the recent episodes, but my wife and I and a couple of friends went to see them in Charlotte. And it's interesting. I saw them as a student at NC State in Carter Finley Stadium in 1990, and then 31 years later saw them just recently, a few weeks ago at Bank of America Stadium. So it was,
awesome.
it was interesting to kind of the perspective from when I was 20 versus 51, seeing whatever they would have, of course they were in their 50s. If they were my age when I saw them the first time, were actually even older. No, they were about the same age, because I think Mick Jagger is 78 years old, still out there. I mean, if I'm able to do that, maybe the Carolina Thread Trail will help me
keep me
healthy so I can do what he was doing at 78. Bart, what about you? Something most people don't know about you.
This is something I'm actually real proud of, but not many people know. My grandmother was an editor for the Washington Post.
Oh, wow.
And knew Katharine Graham, who was then
all
that kind of stuff. So.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It was a lot of fun. She told stories.
Yeah, I bet. What years was that?
She worked for them for a long time. I would guess 65 to 80.
Okay, wow.
She was an editor for the last 10, 12 years at that time.
So, that would have been, those early 70s especially would have been some interesting times to be at the Post. Wow.
Very.
Yeah. So, again, I appreciate you sharing that. Maybe, Bart, start with you. A book or something you would recommend to our listeners?
For those who like this outdoor activity, I just recently went through Outside Magazine published 25th anniversary, all their greatest hits kind of thing.
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun. It's really great writing because they get to pick from 25 years of stories about the kind of activities that we enjoy. Okay,
very good. That's a great connection there. Ashton, what about you? Book or blog or article, anything you would?
Yeah, kind of along the lines of Bart there, focusing on the outdoors. If people are into reading about nonfiction and adventure, check out The River of Doubt by Candace Millard. It's about Theodore Roosevelt's journey down the tributary of the River of Doubt in the Amazon, and following his trying to go back and rerun for president once he failed.
You said Millard is the...
Candace Millard.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a note of that. Yeah, I'm a big reader, so I'm always looking for the next thing. I've read a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt, but I don't think I've ever read anything just that he did that. I haven't read anything that's really detailed about that. So I appreciate you guys kind of indulging us on those local questions. So we're getting close to finishing up here, but so a couple more questions before we again make sure we share for our listeners how they can help you guys out. So kind of the next question is sticking with kind of Gaston County in the region. So besides the Carolina Thread Trail, which is obviously a huge reason, why Ashton, why would you say Gaston County is great? You kind of mentioned it earlier with kind of the uniqueness of our geographical area. And
yeah, I think each local community really embraces and has a unique identity. Every place in Gaston County you go to is different, and they take pride in being different and being who they are, which is awesome. And I think I can't say enough about the people here. They made me and my wife feel really welcome.
That's good to hear.
Telling us where we need to go and what restaurants we need to visit. I can't believe they didn't tell me to go to Tony's Ice Cream. But
that's disappointing.
But the people are amazing, and these unique communities are great, and they got a lot going on, a lot of great things.
There are. Yeah, the people is I've been here luckily. Other than a few years away at college, I've been here my whole life, and definitely the people. That's one of the big reasons. And to your point about volunteers and everything else. So, Bart, how would you maybe answer that question?
Different take on the same topic, really, that Ashton was talking about. That there's a lot of diversity. There's rural and there's textiles and there's a little bit of burgeoning urban area, and there's mountains and there's water, and it's just kind of one of everything.
Yeah.
With that are all these great folks who we've been talking about who are doing these wonderful things. And so it's just an exciting place to be. It's got all this stuff to take advantage of, and people are working hard at it.
Very good. Listen, I appreciate you sharing that. So here's a question I like to ask. Maybe start with you, Bart. If you weren't involved with the Carolina Thread Trail, what do you think you would be doing?
Dude, I had to think hard about that. It's not an easy answer for me. I've had this unusual career, actually, and none of it was really planned. I didn't plan to go from here to here to here. Sure. And I might have gone back to education, which was a strong interest of mine, which is what led me to go back to Davidson College to work there after I had attended there. But I'm not sure. This opportunity fits like a glove for me, so it's a little hard to think about something else.
Well, when we have discovered, and even my own experience is, if you're passionate about something, that is a hard question. If you found something that you're really passionate about, that can be a hard question to ask. But I'm gonna ask anyway, Ashton. What do you think you might be doing if you weren't currently involved with the Carolina Thread Trail?
I love the Carolina Thread Trail. I love what I'm doing, and it's been a lot of fun. I also have a really strong passion for private land protection and some family backgrounds in the grocery business. My grandfather was just a small cattle farmer, so we got to help our producers out there. So protecting farms and ranches is really important.
Was that somewhere out in Arkansas or?
In Arkansas, yep.
Okay, very good. All right, this really is. I say this about half the questions, but this really is my favorite question. So, Ashton, I'll start with you. Knowing what you know now, of course, for you, it may only literally been a couple years ago. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Well, that was 10 years ago for me, so it wasn't that long ago.
longer than for Bart and I, but I mean shorter than for Bart and I.
I'd say the biggest thing is identify what your strengths and weaknesses are, accept what your strengths are, and accept what your weaknesses are.
Yeah.
And embrace what you have, and be okay with what you don't, and grow in both.
Oh, that's really good.
So,
actually, we've done 25 of these now. That's a very unique answer that we haven't heard. So that's really good. When we're 20, we stress about being great at everything, or trying to figure out what you're good at, and maybe worry too much about trying to improve those weaknesses instead of working on enhancing our strengths. Right? That's a great answer. Thank you, Bart. What about you, sir?
Just last year on my 22nd birthday, I thought hard about this.
Okay, good.
It's pretty simple. Don't worry. Be happy. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I think something that I say every few episodes is to that point is perspective. I've learned that perspective really can only come with age and experience. And when I was 20, I had zero perspective about pretty much anything. And it's easy to look back and see that now. But when I was 20, I thought I knew everything and had everything under control. And then your point earlier about the question about what else you might be doing, we think at 20 we're going to have this straight path. Of course, there's no video here, guys, but you can see me. I got this straight path on a graph, but it's more up and down and sideways, and it's not to get where we are today. So, guys, this has really been good. So before we finish up, where can listeners go to learn more about the organization, get involved, contact you directly, donate, just anything you can share there, or any events coming up that you want to make the listeners aware of?
Well, first they can go meet Ashton at Tony's Ice Cream.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Because he'll be there, and they can talk to him there. Second is website, carolinathreadtrail.org.
Okay.
And there are both volunteer opportunities, hike opportunities, bike opportunities, all those kinds of things there. And all can just learn more about the Thread Trail. And within that website, there's a page that has the map of all the trails. And you can click in and see how steep it is and how long it is and what kind of trail it is and all that kind of thing. So all those are great opportunities to get through. What did I miss?
I was just going to highlight that we have our 14th annual Trail Forum coming up.
Okay.
And that's Thursday, December 2nd at the Charles Mack Citizen Center in Mooresville. We're looking for volunteers. We're looking for people to come help with that. That'd be great. And we're also looking for, more people to sign up and come attend. And if you're wanting to get into the technical aspects of what goes into developing, planning, and building trail, come learn about it.
Okay, very good. One thing that just came to my mind to ask is on the website, I noticed there was a separate what's the association to the Carolina Thread Trail and the Catawba Lands Conservancy? Are they connected or?
Yeah.
So that, again, just my ignorance of that might.
Catawba Lands Conservancy was first,
okay.
And established the Thread Trail. The Thread Trail is a separate organization, but the two work together.
Okay.
And what I tell people is that we have two organizations and one staff, because all of our staff work on both.
Okay, very good. So yeah, that's something that you can see on the website as well. So we'll be sure to again get these this information into our show notes as well. So guys, again, I appreciate your time, and something I do at the end of each episode is have my own book recommendation and maybe pick a quote or a thought for the week. And so what you said earlier about the question about what would I tell my 20-year-old self, unbelievably, after exactly what you said, the book I chose is called Life is Good, the book. And it's by Bart and John Jacobs. So you talk about a tie-in to your point there. And if you don't know who Bart and John Jacobs are, they're actually the founders of the whole Life is Good brand. And they've got a great book. I don't know, I read it. It's been a few years since I read it, but it's kind of more of a inspirational book about, just how to live better and don't worry, be happy, so to speak. So that tie-in was perfect. And my quote for this week it kind of touches on just daily living, and it is one of my favorites, even though I probably say that every week, don't I? Maybe not every single week. But this comes from Mahatma Gandhi, who said, live as if you were to die tomorrow, and learn as if you were to live forever. So this kind of, the theme we try to follow here at GSM Services, as well as kind of the things that we're involved with in the community, and it's never too late to learn something. And again, that's just kind of the philosophy we have. So take those for what it's worth, but that's a good book to check out and think about that quote maybe in the next week. So for all you listeners out there, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast. And please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, and please follow us on our social media platforms. You can also find us and subscribe and rate the podcast on most podcast services such as iTunes, Spotify, and Google. Thanks again to Bart and Ashton from Carolina Thread Trail for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson and Elizabeth King from GSM Services and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.